Forget the confusing media circus surrounding those alleged extortion documents flooding TMZ. The terrifying bottom line is that the very first batch delivered to local Tucson broadcasters contained exactly two chilling messages. These culprits promised to assassinate Nancy Guthrie, a horrifying detail kept hidden until today, proving silence rarely guarantees safety. Nestled below the jagged Catalina Mountains and surrounded by the starlit Tucson sands, this community historically felt incredibly secure, offering an isolated haven where absolute privacy seemed entirely guaranteed. However, that profound security vanished entirely. Late in the evening of January 31st, 2026, leaving both the American public and seasoned crime scene experts completely reeling. Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother, Nancy, was brought back to her residence around 9:50 at night, courtesy of her son-in-law, Tommaso Cian. It seemed like a perfectly ordinary evening in a lockdown house with zero abnormalities before absolute quiet took over, showing no triggered alerts or red flags indicating foul play. Yet investigative reporter Ashley Banfield argues on her Drop Dead Serious audio show that such stillness felt completely unnatural, suggesting the residence wasn't peacefully slumbering, but rather anticipating a strike. Initial statements released by the Pima County Sheriff's Office described an immaculate environment, devoid of tampering, though a much darker alternative reality surfaced once investigators started digging deeper. A significantly grimmer, highly methodical, and terrifyingly sinister narrative kicked off with a totally unexpected element: potted plants proving an unlatched entryway was no simple oversight. Insiders told Banfield that the perpetrator proactively propped open key access routes, utilizing hefty earthen planters to keep a trio of vital gateways completely unobstructed. Leaving the rear fence, the mesh slider, and the culinary entrance wide open might seem trivial, yet psychological profilers consider this specific maneuver an absolute game changer. Without any squeaky hardware or unexpected clatter to wake the neighbors, the assailant mapped out every single action, meaning their actual entry didn't launch the crime. It merely represented the final phase of a meticulously crafted scheme, completely shifting our focus away from asking what actually took place that night. We must instead ask who possessed advanced knowledge of the attack, so hit that subscribe button to catch all upcoming breakthroughs, because the culprit hardly arrived on a whim. The assailant likely devoted massive amounts of time surveilling the household's mundane schedule, tracking morning drop-offs and empty house intervals, ultimately pinpointing the precise minute Nancy Guthrie lost her protective company. Far from a botched robbery attempt, this constituted a premeditated kidnapping, where the pristine residence wasn't a hallmark of peace, but rather a meticulously managed theatrical set. Relatives initially assumed those ajar entryways signaled some sort of health crisis, perhaps disorientation, or a sleepwalking spell, until the discovery of bulky doorstops completely dismantled that theory. Such purposeful staging proved this was no fluke, and as detectives dug into the mystery, they uncovered a terrifying crossover where virtual clues directly aligned with tangible crime scene remnants. We suddenly faced a pair of conflicting storylines, the government's sanitized account clashing heavily with the strategic sequence of events mapped out by Ashley Banfield. Committing such federal offenses creates an absolutely colossal rap sheet for the perpetrator, and I'm downright floored to discover these extortionists actively promised to execute Nancy Guthrie. A treacherous disconnect emerged between those conflicting accounts, potentially masking the sheer severity of the looming danger. The subsequent events flipped the entire narrative upside down, largely because the hushed atmosphere cloaking the Guthrie residence early on February 1st felt completely artificial. Someone explicitly manufactured that quietness when the property's technological pulse, including the exterior monitors, abruptly flatlined at precisely 1:47 in the morning without any innocent technical explanation. Banfield's informants claim this blackout was purposeful, as the trespasser actively disabled the recording devices, rather than simply ducking out of sight, leaving behind broken hardware and tampered movement detectors. With protective gear either snapped in half, swiveled around, or fully deactivated, the sheer brutality of the sabotage hinted at a vital realization. The attacker completely disregarded acoustics, since their escape route was already secured, prompting authorities to look beyond smashed plastics and investigate the probable deployment of an internet signal blocker. Contemporary automated residences rely heavily on steady 2.4 and 5 gigahertz wavelengths, meaning you can easily cripple top-tier defense networks simply by flooding those channels. Banfield notes that neighboring properties suffered bizarre connectivity dropouts during that identical time frame, leaving a cyber trail that practically screams the culprit possessed elite hacking capabilities. The creepiest detail involves a 25-minute blind spot lasting from the 1:47 network crash until 2:12 in the morning, when a faraway roof lens caught a hazy, impossibly disciplined silhouette. The home invader never panicked or sprinted, but rather glided through the property with the swagger of an actor who already memorized the choreography, bypassing every sensor flawlessly. Evading the lenses wasn't enough. They actively scrubbed their own ghost from the premises as they worked, utterly destroying the facade of an undisturbed crime scene with each new discovery. Deepening our scrutiny only magnifies the undeniable truth that evening was completely devoid of peace, serving instead as the backdrop for a flawlessly orchestrated strike. Had the property genuinely remained pristine, the automated monitoring software would have confirmed that status instantly. Vibrational alarms and frequency interference markers absolutely needed to fire off warning messages right away, yet total silence prevailed. That sluggish response and sheer inability to flag a hostile infiltration potentially gifted the kidnapper their most crucial weapon, spare minutes totally upending the investigation's trajectory. The narrative instantly morphed from a simple vanishing act into a malicious hostage situation, pivoting the spotlight onto tangible residues found by the front door unmistakable drops of blood. Crime scene experts all implicitly understand one golden rule: while hackers can wipe computer servers clean, biological remnants remain brutally honest. The moment the Guthrie residence lost power at 1:47 in the morning, the situation escalated past a mere cyber puzzle and violently transformed into an outright physical brawl. Authorities initially fed the masses a soothing story, claiming the residence lacked any busted lock signs of brawling or physical brutality. Ashley Banfield's broadcast utterly dismantled that official timeline by revealing a hushed-up discovery made right on the veranda, swiftly birthing two wildly different interpretations of the exact same clues. Law enforcement publicly maintained the environment looked perfectly tranquil and neat, whereas Banfield's insiders insisted the actual reality was remarkably chaotic. Genetic sequencing eventually proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the crimson stains pooling by the doorway originated from Nancy Guthrie herself. This revelation shattered the status quo, instantly upgrading the hunt for a wandering senior citizen into a top-tier pursuit of a dangerous felon. The actual shapes of those stains proved infinitely more crucial than their mere existence, with lab technicians concluding this was absolutely no minor scrape. Investigators noticed distinct impact spatter, indicating blunt force was delivered with explosive savagery, confirming the victim fought tooth and nail against a violently loud extraction. One glaring mystery keeps haunting the detectives on this case. Someone rigged a perfect getaway out back, so why did the violent clash erupt right at the front door? Banfield floats a terrifying theory. She likely made a desperate dash for survival, sprinting toward the main street and pure freedom, but her abductor cut her off entirely. Meanwhile, a massive turf war started brewing between hometown cops and federal agents, clashing violently over the management of crucial crime scene clues. Insiders claim federal forensic experts grew furious since the perimeter was totally trampled. Paramedics rushed inside, assuming someone needed urgent medical care, completely oblivious to the foul play unfolding. During those crucial opening minutes, priceless microscopic clues like loose strands, threads, and cellular matter were likely trampled, missed, or permanently destroyed. Once the genetic test results finally dropped, the sequence of events turned significantly bleaker, frighteningly accurate, and utterly bone-chilling. Precisely at 2:28 in the morning, her internal heart monitor lost contact. 16 short minutes. That tiny window bridges the grainy security video and the absolute final digital pulse. Nobody truly grasps what occurred during that blind spot yet. The crimson stains coating the patio remain the detective's best shot at deciphering her ultimate fate. This twisted saga hardly stops at her doorstep, since the ensuing chapter completely bypassed reality. The nightmare simply migrated into cyberspace. While boots on the ground sweeps throughout the desert mountains hit a frustrating brick wall, this terrifying missing person inquiry abruptly plunged deep into the dark web. That agonizing quiet shattered at last, though definitely not via traditional ransom letters or burner phones. Secure digital messages suddenly started flooding the inboxes of massive gossip networks like TMZ. The journalist tracking these communications insists this radical pivot flipped the playbook forever. A standard neighborhood rescue mission instantly morphed into an intense national security digital manhunt. That brought forth a pair of wildly conflicting theories. Do detectives currently possess any solid proof pointing toward a crime of opportunity or a premeditated hit? Cops publicly stated they were chasing every tip, but essentially admitted total ignorance. They just assumed both scenarios were highly plausible. Plenty of critics brushed off these notes as cruel pranks cooked up by internet trolls. However, high-ranking federal agents recognized a genuinely sinister undertone buried within. That chilling reaction stemmed from a couple initial dispatches hiding highly classified secrets completely hidden from the press. They accurately describe unique furniture placements, random personal belongings, and her exact outfit. Police intentionally buried those facts, leading investigators to a single terrifying conclusion. The anonymous author possessed insider knowledge rather than blind luck. Such precise facts functioned as an electronic fingerprint, heavily implicating the actual kidnapper or a corrupt insider. Next dropped the ransom precisely one single Bitcoin. Back then, that equaled about $100,000. Such a meager price tag for filthy rich relatives immediately baffled the detectives. Did a criminal mastermind intentionally lowball the price, Or was the culprit completely oblivious to the massive magnitude of their own horrific felony? Using encrypted channels proved serious computer fluency, yet blasting out secrets to a trashy gossip blog hinted at an entirely different core motivation: desiring pure fame. Most serious criminals actively dodge the spotlight. The veteran reporter quickly noticed the author's attitude shifting. Initial bargaining attempts organically rotted into pure malice. Come April, anonymous dispatches openly ridiculed the task force, boldly claiming the search dogs were scouring completely useless dirt. The Phantom watched the nightly news like a hawk, playing a twisted mental chess match. This arrogant villain clearly felt light years ahead of the baffled badge wearers. Plunging into the dark web yielded much more than fresh breadcrumbs. It completely blew open massive internal agency rifts. Away from the cameras, bitter animosity between local cops and federal agents rapidly boiled over. Federal tech nerds scrambled to hunt down the crypto ledgers and bounce server locations, but county cops dragged their feet, largely doubting the sheer authenticity of those cryptic emails. Stalling the operation burned precious hours. The elusive hacker undoubtedly weaponized that specific delay to scorch their digital footprints utilizing complex masking software and coin-tumbling algorithms. Venturing into cyberspace didn't merely push the manhunt forward, it inadvertently handed the Phantom a flawless opportunity to vanish into thin air. Yet as the rabbit hole deepened, finding the kidnapper strangely took a back seat to a massive bureaucratic ego trip. A totally separate war raged behind locked doors. A bitter stalemate erupted, pitting allied law enforcement departments directly against one another. While detectives desperately hunted for clues, this missing woman's file got completely swallowed by an escalating turf war dividing the county precinct and national operatives. The veteran news anchor firmly believes this petty infighting totally blew their critical window. Cracking the mystery stopped being the primary objective. It quickly morphed into a massive power struggle for absolute jurisdiction. The stubborn local county boss spearheaded the absolute blockade, stonewalling allies so aggressively that it left veteran Justice Department operatives utterly speechless. Taxpayers expected teamwork, yet deep fractures plagued the squad. Informants leaked tales of bitter screaming matches rather than any smooth tactical synergy. Things got so hostile that top-tier federal forensic units literally packed up and relocated their base camp almost 120 miles north. A few observers deemed the pivot tactical. Skeptics viewed it as a total retreat. Then the ultimate bombshell dropped regarding a bloody mitt discovered just 2 miles from her property. Agents swabbed genetic profiles straight off the patio. Feds allegedly demanded those microscopic treasures be flown directly to their state-of-the-art facility, but the sheriff loudly vetoed it. All crucial swabbing detoured down south to an independent commercial testing center, an outfit the local boss had personally favored for years. The chief cited proven loyalty, while national agents viewed the detour as a catastrophic blunder. Hoarding clues during high-profile manhunts establishes absolute dominance. This massive ego clash bred something toxic. Severe delays utter chaos and a shattered manhunt. Despite smiling press conferences faking unbreakable teamwork, the seething hatred boiling underneath steadily worsened. Bitter fights over territory, scientific tactics, and evidence custody built a giant roadblock, which the elusive kidnapper likely exploited to quietly slip away. While suits squabble over paperwork, someone orchestrating a disappearance is buying a one-way ticket to absolute oblivion. Banfield highlights a massive rift tearing the local deputies and federal profilers completely apart. They weren't simply fighting for dominance, they fundamentally clashed on what this crime actually meant. This sparks a chilling mystery that remains largely unresolved today. Did ego trips intentionally sabotage the hunt for Nancy? It wasn't missing clues holding them back, but rather conflicting egos. To pivot, federal agents leaned heavily into DNA, ancestry networks, enlisting specialists such as C.C. Moore to smash through the walls of standard forensic archives. It was a glaring indicator that their broken protocol forced them to hunt for alternative methods. Right when the probe hit a frustrating brick wall, chilling footage emerged from a nearby doorbell lens. A shadowy intruder emerged, lacking a clear identity, yet providing the very first tangible target that could effectively bridge the bitter gap between warring departments, pushing this chaotic manhunt back toward undeniable reality. Suddenly, detectives grasped their very first tangible lead. A haunting silhouette materialized on the recording, offering a menacing shape rather than a clear identity. Broadcasting on Drop Dead Sirius, Ashley Banfield thrust a restored video clip into the spotlight, one salvaged following the 1:47 in the morning power failure. The contents were absolutely terrifying. An intruder clad in pitch-black tactical gear navigated the area with calculated precision, yet their sinister wardrobe wasn't the most shocking element on display. The devil hid in the accessories. Banfield specifically zeroed in on a mundane charcoal and silver Ozark Trail knapsack. It was an incredibly cheap, mass-market retail bag that felt wildly incongruous with the scenario. Otherwise, the Phantom displayed flawless preparation, intense focus, and deep electronic expertise. Detectives suspect the culprit deployed network scramblers to completely neutralize the property's security grid. However, carrying such a loud, easily recognizable bag created a massive paradox. Did they hire a seasoned operative or just a wannabe playing dress-up? Federal experts assert this shadow wasn't merely standing guard. They were likely the mastermind orchestrating the entire ordeal. Footage catches the suspect intentionally blinding the lens right before the system dies. They flawlessly mapped out every visual loophole, identifying precise targets to dismantle at the perfect moment. One chilling anomaly almost slipped by unnoticed. The assailant gripped a glinting steel object, perhaps a tampering gadget or a heavy instrument meant to shatter bulbs and subdue their target. Consequently, an unsettling behavioral model emerged. This wasn't a master thief nor a bumbling novice, but a bizarre mixture. The attacker possessed the know-how to hack networks, yet lacked the strict rigor required to sanitize their physical footprint. They clearly researched elite maneuvers without having the real-world chops to pull them off smoothly, prompting a fierce media inquiry. Did this rogue wolf act alone, or were they simply mimicking a movie plot? While the disguised culprit vanished into the dry Badlands, detectives pivoted toward a unique clue. This lead originated directly from the abducted woman's own body. For this elderly target, the ultimate surveillance beacon didn't hang on a wall. It was surgically embedded near her heart, a specialized medical implant. Journalistic reports indicated the implanted apparatus beamed daily health updates to a specific bedside router. At exactly 2:28 in the morning, a mere 16 minutes after distant security cameras logged her removal, that crucial biological transmission completely evaporated. Optimists argued she merely traveled too far, dragging the hardware completely out of the local network's reach. Conversely, federal health experts feared a much darker reality, citing an abrupt digital flatline. It didn't stutter or fade. The data feed simply vanished instantly. Hoping to reestablish contact task forces unleashed advanced radar modules specifically tuned to hunt faint biomedical wireless frequencies. Choppers and infantry swept the vast Sonoran wastelands, desperately pursuing an entirely unseen electronic pulse. During this chaotic chapter, the mystery fractured into two distinct realms, the cold digital facts versus the horrific physical reality she likely endured out there. Endless rescue missions scoured the unforgiving sun-baked trails bleeding straight into the southern international boundary. Aviation units and foot patrols synchronized their grueling manhunt, tracking a totally imperceptible phantom. They hunted a digital specter trapped within circuits. Ultimately, the senior's fate hinged entirely on a single terrifying unknown. What ultimately silenced the signal, a drained battery or geographical distance, meant she might still be breathing. But a traumatic cardiac spike preceding endless silence pointed toward a devastatingly tragic conclusion. Detectives were finally drawn to a desolate patch near the Buenos Aires sanctuary, a notorious playground for illicit border traffickers. Banfield revealed that a fleeting ping echoed from that zone 3 days post-disappearance, inciting a massive government raid. Skeptical regional cops heavily disputed this, blaming the phantom blip on stray radio static from Homeland Security towers. This bitter jurisdictional bickering proved insanely costly, as every wasted second let the trail freeze over. Those lost hours effectively sealed her tragic fate. Medical implants simply do not possess infinite broadcasting power. Lacking continuous daily updates, the internal battery depletes rapidly. Predictably, the beacon died out permanently, severing the only electronic tether they possessed, forcing investigators to swallow a very grim truth. This frail, 84-year-old captive had absolutely zero agency over her forced relocation in the dark. Ironically, the medical gadget implanted to sustain her heartbeat likely documented the exact second it stopped entirely. Pivoting away from dead electronics, authorities desperately shifted their tactics toward financial incentives, dangling a massive $1 million bounty to shatter whatever criminal omerta still protected the culprits. As scorching summer temperatures peaked during month 2, investigative leads completely froze. Sifting through the wreckage, journalists unearthed a truly sickening realization. This abduction was meticulously calculated. The precise timing of that heart monitor's termination heavily implied calculated malice, rather than dumb luck. The predator who took her likely pinpointed her exact weaknesses long before their paths actually crossed. Detectives chased down early clues like a pale car and impounded rides, yet the investigation stayed completely fractured. Turf wars tearing local cops and federal agents apart never really faded. They only grew much worse. Even as feds readied cutting-edge ancestral tracking to match an unidentified male genetic sample pulled from a discarded glove nearby, petty bureaucratic squabbles over holding the proof dragged everything out. Wasting time in these situations is never harmless. It tips the scales, meaning every single moment, burned on red tape, hands the phantom suspect another huge lead. Banfield drives home a chilling point. Bureaucratic dragging directly buries the facts, making this mystery stand out, not merely for the tragedy itself, but for the broken machinery it exposes. Nancy Guthrie vanishing into thin air highlights a massive flaw bleeding through today's detective work. Reality falls through the cracks the second computer networks crash and departments clash, leaving the very tech built to keep her safe completely dead and utterly useless. Clues designed to point detectives in the right direction sparked arguments, instead burning precious daylight, while officials bickered over statistics and choices. Ultimately, the razor-thin line separating a safe rescue from a permanent ghost story comes down to ticking minutes, not a matter of weeks. Welcome back, true crime community. Our dedicated crew grinds around the clock to drop the freshest, sharpest, and most exact case breakthroughs right onto your screens. We launched Crime Hotspot Global to serve up deep dives, sharp breakdowns, and solid facts regarding active investigations pulling strictly from verified and open public records. Smashing that thumbs up button and joining our subscriber squad really helps us out. If you enjoyed this breakdown, knowing you have our backs pushes the crew to craft even heavier, high-quality deep dives daily. So huge, thanks for tuning in and riding alongside us. In life, the smallest of moments often carry the deepest lessons. We rush through our days chasing success recognition or comfort. Yet we sometimes overlook what truly matters: kindness, empathy, and human connection. The story reminds us that every action, no matter how small, has the power to impact someone's life in ways we may never fully see. Education is not only about knowledge, it is about shaping character. It teaches us to listen to understand and to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. True growth comes when we learn to reflect on our choices and take responsibility for them. It is in these moments of reflection that we become better individuals. We must remember that everyone around us is fighting their own battles. A gentle word, a helping hand, or even simple patience can make a world of difference. When we choose compassion over judgment, we build a stronger, more caring community. In the end, success is not measured by what we gain, but by what we give. Let this be a reminder: be kind, be aware, and never underestimate the power of your actions.